Hello, welcome again. I want to look at the my fourth video on my time value of money series, and in this video I want to focus on annuities, and that is different types of annuities and how we compute the present value and the future value of annuities. So as you may know, when we talk about annuities, what we are referring to is something different from what we have been discussing on future value and present value. Because in this case, we are focusing on a single amount, and this was shown in my previous series of videos. In this case, what we are referring to is not just a single amount. We are talking of a series of same payments. So instead of investing $100 as we saw in the previous video, and we were asking ourselves the future value of that $100 in 3 years time, in this case we are saying it's $100 being invested at time zero, and you invest maybe another $100 at year one, and maybe $100 at year two, and maybe $100 at year three. So in other words, you invest $100 each year. Now, depending on the nature of these payments, the payments could be either at the beginning of the period, or the payments could be at the end of the period. So if the payments are at the end of the period, then what we are talking about, for example, in this case, will be you're investing $100 as an example at the end of each year. So you have $100 as a payment here, a payment at the end of year two, and a payment at the end of year three. And therefore, in that case, then we refer to this as an ordinary annuity. So we are talking about an ordinary annuity where the payments are being done at the end of the period. The other type of annuity is where instead of the payments being done at the end of the period, you are making an investment at the beginning of the period. If that's the case, then we are talking about an annuity due. So could be again at the beginning of the period you invest 100, and year two, beginning of year one, you invest 100, and again beginning of year two, you invest 100. In that case, this is annuity due, and in the first case is an ordinary annuity. In either case, the question we're try to address or answer is how we determine what the future value will be for this series of payments. The same thing, where there's an annuity due, we asking ourselves what the future value will be for this set of payments. And we can also address what the present value will be for the same set of payments, and also the present value for the same set of payments in case of annuity due. And then, of course, we can answer later on in terms of how we can compute now the PMT, that's the payment, in case again that's the issue we're trying to address. And we're going to see this again in later on as we cover this part of the presentation. So to compute the present value of annuity, again, this could be annuity due, or this could be an ordinary annuity. So in case of an ordinary annuity, and we're going to use just a simple example of $100 as the payment at 4% per year, and this is for a period of 3 years. So with the same thing we saw here for 3 years, where it's 4% and our N is 3 years and our rate is 4%. If that's the case, what is the future value of this series of payments? If you use a calculator, I think this is a financial calculator, then again you're just going to input all the variables. You're going to enter what you've been given. You've been given the payment is $100, so you're going to when it comes to the payment, you're going to enter $100. Your rate you're going to enter as 4%. the number of periods, we know that's 3 years, and the present value, in this case, we assume the present value because we're looking for the future value. So in this case, the present value, we're going to put this to be 0, and then again, you request for the CPT, the compute. So compute the future value, and you find this to be 3, 12, and 16. So in this example, the future value becomes 3, 16, and 12 cents as the future value of investing $100 at the end of year 3 for over 3-year period, where I is 4% and our N is 3. If you are looking for the if you're looking for the present value of an ordinary annuity, then in this case again, you're going to just do the same thing as we did for the future value. The only difference is the future value, you put that to be 0. So the future value will be 0, the variables remains the same, and again you do the compute, the CPT. In this case, the CPT is going to be the present value, and you find this to be 277 and 51. So in that example, then your present value becomes 277.51 in case of an order annuity, and the future value becomes 316.12 in case of again of an order annuity. In case of an annuity due, again, you could use a form, you can use a calculator for those two cases. So if you use a financial calculator, then of course, again, you do the future value, the same thing we did for a single amount. The difference, the formula remains the same. The only difference is now we have now the PMT, where the PMT in this case is going to be $100. So in that case, we can find the future value of an order annuity when you use the financial calculator. And again, remember, our payments here are being uh, done at the end of each year, and therefore the type is going to be 0. Now, this will be complete. There will be some changes if you're looking at the annuity due. If you're looking at annuity due, then what you end up changing is the type. So you'll enter the variables, and the type changes to 1, where basically indicates the payments are at the beginning of the period when it comes to annuity due. If you end up using a financial calculator, you'll have to make some adjustment, and the adjustment you're going to make is by default, the payments are considered to be at the end of the period. But because you're talking about an annuity due where the payments are at the beginning, if you're going to use a calculator, then it means you make sure you set your calculator to reflect that the payments, those payments are at the beginning of the period. So make sure that you remember to set your payments to be considered to be at the beginning of the period in case of an annuity due. And therefore, in this case, the future value will be 324.65. And again, you do the same thing for the present value of annuity due, where again you'll set the payments to be the beginning, and if you're using an Excel or a spreadsheet, you set the type to be 1, and therefore reflects the payments to be at the beginning of the period. Again, it's a simple way to do it. There's another alternative on how to find the future value of an ordinary annuity if you want to just to stick to the ordinary annuity. The way you compute the future value of an annuity, ordinary annuity, you could use the same formula. The only difference is if you're looking at the future value of an annuity due, what you'll do is you'll find the future value of an ordinary annuity, and then what you do is you'll multiply this with an extra payment, which is 1 plus I, and that will give you what the future value of that order annuity is going to be. So I'm assuming this information helps you. Just make sure that you make a distinction whether the payments are at the beginning or the payments are at the end. So if you use Excel, make sure you make those adjustments for an annuity due, and make sure you make that adjustment if you're also using the financial calculator when it comes to annuity due. But just by an ordinary annuity, no adjustments are needed because by default, the calculator is going to consider those payments to be at the end of the period. So that concludes my presentation on how to find the future value and the present value of annuity due or ordinary annuity. I'm going to discuss later on something called uneven cash flows. So you're going to see how we determine the future value and the present value if those cash flows are not the same. In this case, with annuities, is a series of same payments. What about if those payments are not the same? How do we solve the future value or the present value of those uneven cash flows or uneven payments? And you're going to see this in my next video, so look forward to that, and I will let you know how we go about in solving this. Thank you, and see you in the next video.